65.
Before you move past this period of 64 to 66, after you had the Woody car, you had the Garlits car, you guys actually occupied two spots in two
That's
different
right.
cars on the
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Eliminator
I
list.
think we were the only people to ever do that. And we defended both of them with two independent cars, different engines and everything. Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment, just considering the fact that there's only 10 spots available on that thing. You
Uh-huh.
guys had two of them.
Oh, Jerry thought that was wonderful. That was his idea. He says, let's just keep both of them. and we did for a pretty good while.
Wow. How long was that in 66? How long was that Woody chassis? What was the length of that? Do you remember?
I don't remember. The first one was not terribly long, but
Yeah.
then I got one. Those Woody cars were 1 year cars
Yeah.
because we hauled them over some rough roads in Texas,
Oh, okay.
and uh, and we would either get a new car or have them front halved, and that's how that went.
So did you actually go out to California and meet with Woody to, get the car all set up, that sort of thing, or not? Or did you
Well,
just order
we
it?
didn't have to get it set up with Woody Gilmore. He just he looked at my driver. He had it fit when he got there. I don't know. Woody Gilmore was. I'm telling you, I've never dealt with anyone like him. And if he told me that car was going to be ready on Friday afternoon, he would tell me, he says, "Bring your motor. You can race at Long Beach tomorrow night." And, but I didn't do that. But I could have. He,
Yeah.
he had he had the car ready when he said it would be, and it was complete. It didn't have anything wrong with it. And
That's what I heard about Woody Gilmore. He was a no BS kind of guy. He was straight
right.
shooter.
And Pat Foster worked for him off and on.
Yeah. Think
Yeah.
about that duo for a minute. Woody Gilmore and Pat Foster. Wow.
Yeah.
There's two guys that took no crap from anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how come me to get involved with Woody Gilmore was I went out there and Joe Reith was my West Coast representative.
Uh,
Delhi was a jewel. When I needed parts in California and I called out there to get pistons or rods or anything out there, I might get them in 3 weeks. I'd call Delhi. I said, Delhi, I need some pistons this weekend. That'd be on Monday. She would call and have them manufactured and mailed to me. Most of the time, I'd get them by that weekend. And they didn't COD them or anything. They were delivered to my house. They didn't wait for the money. And I'd pay Delhi every penny I owed her right on time. And she and I had a wonderful relationship. Anyway, we went out there, and when we were out there one time, Joe Reese says, I need tonight, says, when we get through eating, we need to go down to Woody's place. It was there in Long Beach. And I says, what are you going to do? He says, well, Woody wants to talk to you. He knows you're a Garlits customer, and he's not trying to do anything for you. He just wants you to know what he's got available. And we went down there and we spent that night down there about 2 or 3 hours talking to Woody Gilmore. And Woody told me what he had, what he could do, what he did, and all this. And he sold me on his stuff. And so it wasn't long till I ordered me a new Woody car. And that's how that all happened.
well, and when you're talking about uh, Reith, that would be the same Reith family that was associated with Jim Dunn, right? Dunn
Yes,
Reith.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. That's the one. They
Okay.
were, they were fine people to deal with. Yes.
I've got a friend by the name of John Toll who he was a vice president of sales for Vic Edelbrock for a long time, and he knew Joe Reith pretty good and said he was just an outstanding, stellar human being, just a great guy to be around.
Yes, yes, yes.
So 1967 to 1971 is kind of a period of time here. We had Simpson was with you.
That's right. Watus, Watus, Watus.
Wait
I've
a
never heard that name again.
Wait a Simpson.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
So how did okay? So you
Watus
got
Ray Simpson.
You guys, you guys are down to running one car now, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And you're with you got a Woody chassis. This
Uh-huh.
period of time, 67 to 71, what did you guys do? Regional racing? Did you do any national events, that sort of thing?
Well, uh, we not really. Uh, no, I I raced. I worked at General Motors,
Yeah.
and I was a supervisor, and I couldn't miss. I couldn't lay out and miss work because I was a supervisor. I was the one that told all my hourly people that they had to be there on time and come to work. And so I couldn't make the Labor Day races. In those days, the Labor Day race was the one I would have gone to.
Yeah.
And I I couldn't be off in September because that was a new model startup. And if you were a supervisor, the new model startup meant that you had to be there to help work the bugs out of the new model. I worked at the GMC plant here in Arlington. I mean, General Motors plant. And in those days, we built Buick, O's, Pontiac, and some Chevrolets, and a few Cadillacs. So I was a busy person at work, so I couldn't take off a week or two and go to the races.
Yeah.
When I went to the races in California or Florida or anywhere way off, uh, well, when I went to Long Beach to race for Mickey Thompson out there in the earlier years, I would take a day off on Friday, a vacation day off on Friday. I'd have the truck loaded, and Thursday evening when I got off work, we would get in that truck at GMC Suburban. We would head for Long Beach. We would drive straight through, grab a sack of hamburgers at across the street from the gas station, and keep going. We'd get to Long Beach Saturday morning. We'd go by a car wash, and I was still hauling my car on an open trailer then, and we'd wash it off, go to Long Beach, race. Mickey'd say, well, Saturday night after the race, he says, we're going to feed everybody down there at the cafe after the races. I says, Mickey, I got to be on the road by midnight because I got to go to work at 6:30 Monday morning. And that was it. We were on the road and gone, and the same routine going home. It was West Coast turnaround, we called it.
Uh, okay,
So
so I got to ask you, what was Lions that drag strip? What Long Beach? What was that like to run there? I've heard so many stories about that track.
it was a famous place to run, and that was run. They kept things moving. They run more cars through there than any other track I ever saw. I mean, they lined them up and shot them down through there,
Yeah.
and it was a fine run place. Yeah.
Well, a guy who's over a period of time here has become someone who I can call a friend now finally is Larry Sutton, the guy who used to be the starter out there at
Uh
Lions.
huh. Uh
Man
huh.
in the black hat, and it's been my privilege to get to know him and the stories he tells about Lions. Wow.
Well, he agrees with me, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And well, I know that one of the nights I went out there, Mickey Thompson says, "I've got you and Ivo both hired in," and that was when Ivo was running that two-motor Buick, I think, and I was running probably my I don't know my '62 car or something. I don't along in there somewhere,
Yeah.
and he says nobody has run 190 yet. He says, if either one of you run 190, the first one to do it, I'll pay him an extra $1,000. Well, I'd gone out there for $500. So if I've got an extra 1,000, I was really going to be in good shape. I went out there and I ran 3 times and run 188 3 times. Oh, I can still remember that. That's just like holding the carrot in front of the rabbit.
Well,
I
so
don't, if you don't want me to throw these things like that in, I won't.
oh no, I do want you to throw those things in. I love these. That's what this is all about, the stories. You know,
Okay.
this is what I found out by doing all this. when I first started doing this, we'd talk about I ran this ET back in 1968 and I ran this speed, and nobody cares about that. Everybody wants to hear the stories of what went on when you guys were running the roads and the races and what happened after the races. And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that's what everybody really wants to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you went to in 70, well, let's get this. You guys won the AHRA Nationals in '67, but you also went to Bakersfield and had a pretty good showing at the '71 March meet.
Oh yes, yes. I'll tell you what I did that year. I had thought and thought and thought. In '71, I knew that I was behind the ball. I wasn't, because I still had I never ran anything but cast iron blocks and front motored cars. And in '71, I was racing against about half the cars I raced against, like John Weeby had those Donovan aluminum motors,
Yep.
and they had the rear motored cars, and I was playing second best. And I says, for that Bakersfield meet, I'm going to build me a motor that I can go out there and compete with. So as you look back, I competed. I won 3 rounds. I went 4, counting the one I got beat.
Yeah.
And I took me a block and I took it down to my buddy that did all my boring and went with me in racing some. And I went over to Dallas to the tubing place and I bought me some tubing, and we put me 8 sleeves in a cast iron block. So because I was having trouble splitting the sleeve on number 3 and 5, mostly on the sleeve on 3. And I said, I'm going to put me some tubing in there where I won't split that cylinder wall, where I can run enough timing to have a little power in my motor. So I did all that. Deck had the top, had those 8 sleeves put in there. And I had them where when you bolted the head on, they'd stay there. And everything worked out good. And we went out there and we raced. We made a couple of qualifying rounds and those 3 elimination rounds. And on that last elimination round, we won. But when we got to the end, the head gasket was blown. Well, what happened was when we cut that much of the block away, the deck on the top of the block didn't stay flat. And so the head gaskets wouldn't stay. And so we had a good thing going. It just didn't last.
Yeah.
It needed to last 2 more rounds, and it didn't. And
Well, it was the semifinal round, if I remember right. The semis that you lost to Garlits eventually.
yes. Uh-huh.
Do you remember how many cars was this still like a 64 car field or a 32?
That was a 64 car field. I think it was a year or 2 before when they ran the additional 32 car field.
Yeah.
And I think I made all those Bakersfield meets, and I did respectable. I just didn't get down to the last 4 or 5 cars.
Yeah.
I think I got down. I won down to the last 8. I thought that's pretty good for a 64 car field.
That's outstanding. It's better to win the race, but hell, 8, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
That was a period of time. I'm not old enough to remember that. I'm 56 this year, and I literally do not remember ever watching a race more than 16 cars being at 32 cars or 64.
Well, let me tell you one thing about Bakersfield. Well, I hope I hadn't interrupted you.
Nope, you haven't.
Out there in Bakersfield, when they run them big races, there were 3 pair running at the same time. Have you been told that? Okay, there were 3 pair running. There were a pair pushing down. They staged them at the finish line, and there were 2 pair pushing down. There were 2 pair turning around, staging, and there were 2 pair going down the track.
Wow.
And I'm here to tell you there wasn't anything in the world sounded better to see and watch.
I can only imagine the sound and the nitro in the air. It had to be amazing.
And I'll tell you what, you got down to the finish line to run. It was an accident if you got to run who you wanted to run. They put all those cars down there, and they pulled you up to the line to start stage to push down.
Yeah.
And they called you up, you went or you didn't go. You know, so, you might run Don Garlits or you might run somebody you'd never heard of, but they it wasn't a chart that paired you. They just you were told to go down there and stage, and that's what they did.
Wow. Well, okay, so 71 is pretty much your final year, and I think I read somewhere that you had to make a choice. Are you gonna get an aluminum block? You're gonna step up? You're gonna get a rear engine car and all
Uh-huh.
the money that went into that?
I told Waiters, I says, Waiters, when we went home from that race at Green Valley, we made the Green Valley race that year after, at the end of the year. And I told Waiters, I said, Waiters, I don't have the money to to go to the store and buy all we need. So we're going to sit out and see how long it takes me to accumulate enough for us to race some more. I says, we need a new rear motored car. We need a new aluminum block and all the parts that go with it. I says, just go home and wait for things to happen. And I, I couldn't get a sponsor because I couldn't go and display and couldn't be where they wanted me and all.
Yeah.
So I never was able to accumulate the money fast enough to keep up with what the increase in the cost. And the last year in 1971, when it was all said and done, I had my calendar. And on my calendar, I had all my race dates. And when I got home, I write down what we won. I mean, where we won, how much we won, and what all went on. And after 71 was over, I got that calendar out and I looked at it. And that year, we uh, either runner up or won half the races we went to.
Oh,
That's not a bad record.
that's not a bad year at all.
Uh,
Well,
and, uh, and when I totaled the money up, it didn't cover.
you spent money, huh?
But I'd run a lot. Most of the time, I'd run a match race or two a month, and then I'd go run open competition. And in those years, open competition paid $300 or $500. Every now and then there'd be an $800 race or something. But it's not like people think it is today. It and fuel in was about I think it was $321 a barrel. Tires were $200 a pair, and it was kind of expensive when you were winning 300 or 500.
Yeah. Well, the match race scene. I mean, it's one of the things that, the match race scene was so important for all the racers to be able to fund their operation to go to the national events.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Because the national events, face it, the national events didn't pay good.
Well, that I don't guess so. The Green Valley AHRA 62 championship I won, my winning prize was a 62 Plymouth Valiant. That's one of those engines that leaned over to the side.
Yeah.
That was the prize winning engine. I mean, prize winning car. That's what I won. Plus, I won some contingency money, but that was the basic prize. And the Monday after the week after that race was over on Monday, I called the dealership and I says, "Hey, what can I work out a deal with you for this car that I won out here at Green Valley?" It says, "Oh, we've sold that thing once. We don't want to have to sell it again." And, and he says, "Good luck." And so I checked around. Anyway, I called him back about a week later, and I wound up selling it back to him for $800.
Oh, gee.
That was my championship prize, $800.
Wow.
But
So,
I did get a war bond from uh, the woodpecker camp. What is Woody? Well, no, what was it that
oh,
used to?
uh,
Anyway, I got a $50 savings bond from them, and I had my daughter was born that year, and I had her name put on it. And about 10 years ago, she cashed it. it was a it was a $50 savings bond. She got $300 for
well,
it.
there you go. Well, so you stepped out of racing. Was it hard for you to step away? I mean, did you continue to at least go to the drag race, or did you just walk away from it?
I just pretty well walked away with it. I didn't mind going. I'd go to, but at that particular time, it was getting to where to go to a good race, I had to go pretty good ways, and it was hard to go pretty good ways when I was just going to go and drive back.
Yeah.
And now I did a few years ago, I did help Dale Emery. You know who Dale Emery is?
Yes, I do.
Well, Dale Emery was helping Jim Cullen
Yeah.
and Denver Schultz run a blown fueler at Bakersfield
Yeah.
out there. And Emery had most of his knowledge had been on late model Hemis with Raymond Beadle.
Yeah.
And he called me in to help him a little bit because he knew that my expertise was in the 392. And I went and helped them at Bakersfield several races for a couple of 3 years.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
Got my hands dirty again.
Well, so I mean, are you gonna try and make it out to Nitro Revival this year? Are you gonna be out there again, or?
Well, I went. I didn't go last year. I called Steve Gibbs the last week before he had it, and I said, Steve, I know you sent me all these credentials and everything, and I was planning on coming. I had my room reserved and everything, but it says I went down to Ennis 3 weeks ago at the Ennis race, you know, the big NHRA Ennis race at Ennis. And I says, I walked around out there about 4 hours. And with my arthritis, I says, I just had to quit and go home. And I says, I don't think I can make 2 days at your place. So I'm not going to try to push it. So I didn't go. And I did miss it. But the 2 years before when I went, that was the most fun I ever had.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I have to tell you that I I go out there every year because, it's the biggest nostalgia event on the planet. And
that's right. That's right. And it's handled right.
yes, I mean, well, Steve and Cindy do an outstanding job of running that event. I mean, how long did Steve organize national competition drag racing? I think the man knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So this year they're changing the format a little bit. It's basically going to be a 1 day event instead of being
Uh-huh.
a 2 day event. But I hope to see you out there. I hope you do come on out. I'd like to
Well,
meet you in
I'll
person.
have to see how I'm feeling in those days, but
Yeah.
my my arthritis causes my arms and hands to get numb, and
Yeah.
I'm just not. I'm 91 and a half. I'll be 92 in September.
You're doing good. I hope
Well,
I'm doing that
I
good one.
better take what I'm getting and be pleased.
Isn't that the truth? So, I one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, you know, the competition that you guys had throughout the years with Perdome, with Greek, with uh, uh, Don Garlits, with all these people. Out of all them races, is there one that's the most memorable? Something that really stands out in your mind?
Oh, I don't know. The Greek and I don't have much. We don't have much to say when we run across one another, and that's not often anyway. I visit with Don Perdone. I like him, and we're. I think he's a good guy.
Yeah,
And Garlits, I just can't say enough about Don. He's helped me in a pinch. He's been nice to me, and I remember when we went down to Gainesville. I let me throw. You got time for me to throw another story in
we
there?
got all the time. You got all the time we want
Hey,
here.
Ted Arnold's son, uh, Tony Arnold, uh, he flew Billy Meyer's Learjet. You know, Billy Meyer, the one that
Yeah.
used to race the funny car and
Yep.
owns the drag strip at Ennis and all of that.
Yep.
Well, about, oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, he called me and he says, Vance, he says, uh, I've got an empty seat going to Gainesville. Billy's going to run his funny car down there. So it's got to be more than 5 years. He said, Billy's going to run his funny car down there. Do you want to ride down there with us? I said, yeah. He said, well, meet us in Waco on such and such day at the airport, and we'll go to Waco. We'll go to Gainesville. So I went with him to Gainesville down there, and we went down there, and it rained on Saturday, I believe it was, and I said something to Tony. I says, Tony, have you ever been to Don Garlits Museum? It's just right down the road. He said, no, I'd like to go. So we got in his rent car and run down to, I believe it's at Ocala, where the Garlits Museum is.
Yep.
We went down there and we went in. And we were standing in line there, getting ready to go in. And I felt something by tugging on the back of my shirt. I turned around and looked, and it was Pat Garlits. She says, what are you doing? I said, well, I brought uh, Tony. He's the son of the guy I lost in my race car. We want to look at your deal. She said, well, you don't have to go through here to get a ticket. She says, come with me and I'll give you a guided tour. So Pat took us all through the museum.
Wow.
And I had already been once before. And anyway, Tony just thought it was wonderful to get to go through there and see everything like that.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun, and she was a jewel. And anyway, then we visited with Garlits and so.
Yeah.
And the other time we were down there at the museum, it was Wilma and I, my wife Wilma and we went down there, and Garlits had us, Garlits and Pat had us walk over to their house, which is just on the same premises there. We walked over to their house and stayed 2 or 3 hours and visited, and they're just like normal people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what any of the time I've spent around Don Garlits, that's what I get from him. He's just a normal guy that wanted to win races.
That's right. That's right.
He didn't buy into the whole superstar thing, which I'm glad he didn't.
Well, he should have been. In a lot of those years he should have been treated with more respect.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you got any final stories you want to finish out with?
Well, no, but I'll tell you what. You asked me how I did on learn how to run fuel and
Yeah.
make my car faster than anybody else's at the time.
Yep.
Uh, the guy that bored my blocks and did all my stuff and helped me with a lot of things, he and I, like when we'd go to Houma, Louisiana, which is right out of New Orleans, and Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is like 400 miles away, and places like that. Coming home, we brainstormed. We'd talk about what did that motor want to run better and faster. And you'd be surprised some of the things we come up with that we tried and they worked. And one day we were coming home and I says, Ed, you know, if I had a little man that I could just put out there on those top frame rails with a 5 gallon bucket of nitro and let him throw it in that injector to 900-foot mark, I could outrun anybody. We took that information, and you'd be surprised some of the things we did to try to make it happen. And I don't remember many people driving past my car the last 400 foot.
Yeah. Well, there is one thing whenever you talk to anybody about Vance Hunt, I talked to Steve Gibbs, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, and we had a little discussion about you because, I was trying to do my research on guys before we had me come on, and He just told me that Vance Hunt, he beat the best of the best. There was nobody better than him during that period of time.
Well, I had a ball. I enjoyed it. I really did. And I ran a lot of people. Oh, I'll tell you another one about the Hawaiian. When Mike Snively was driving the Hawaiian, they booked him and my car into Albuquerque, New Mexico. Snively was driving the Hawaiian. We went out there and we ran them a match race on top of the mountain out there, and it was a it was a race where they beat us two straight, but they just beat us off the line and got out on us and held on. And Mike Snively, when it was all over and we were through racing, Mike Snively sat down with us. He says, Vance, he says, your car runs good. He said, I couldn't pull away from you. I was ahead of you, but I couldn't pull away from you. He said, you make the power and you run good. He says, if you had my clutch, you would have beat us today. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we got a new 3-disc clutch set up. That was in the days when everybody's running 2-disc clutches. He says, I've got a 3-disc clutch that's fully adjustable. He says, I'll give you the guy's name that built it for us. And he gave it to me. And I thought that was a blessing because I went home and I ordered it on Monday and I raced it the next weekend. And the car left the line without smoking the tires. And it got out first and it did what it was supposed to do. And I know everybody did that later on. That's what Armstrong did for Bernstein, to put him on top of the world.
Yeah.
Is leave the line and be there first. And there's things like that I paid attention and got ahead of. So.
Well, they definitely paid off for you because if you just look at your record and the races you won, and like you said, in 71, you won 50% of the races or came in second.
Yeah.
That's a hell of an accomplishment.
Well, I won or runner up. It was both,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vance, we're gonna close this session out. It's been absolutely my pleasure to have you on here, and I've talked to everybody around you down there. Larry Brown, he's always talking to me about Vance Hunt and how good the guy was and what a great racer and what a great friend he is. So I'm glad that we had the opportunity to have you on here, Vance.
Well, I really like Larry Brown. He's quite a friend, and he reminds me that I came out of Oklahoma. Oh, man, he always throws that up to me. I said, yeah, but I remember that red dirt in my eyes, and I hadn't wanted to go back.